It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
All right, this is Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Hi. I've WD-40'd the most. Look at that! I've turned a product into a verb. I think it's a verb. It's a doing word, isn't it? I've turned a product into a verb. You hear about products becoming nouns. That's the ultimate success you want, don't you? You want people to Google things and so on. I suppose that's a Googling something. Is that a verb or a noun? Anyway, I've sprayed stuff into the seat in an effort that it won't squeak, so we'll see how we go on the comfy stool. My guest today for the sophomore episode of 2018 season, that means the second, is a dear old friend and work colleague, Lily Chalmers. It was a lovely chat. It happened down in Wellington, one of two podcasts I captured in pure digital binary goodness while I was down. The other one with Otis, which went up a couple of weeks ago, and then that one. So, a couple of weeks back in Auckland, went fishing in the weekend. Have tried a few inner city spots, but they're either just not kind of aesthetically. Listen to me. They're either just, not very pleasant, or you get all snaggy, or they're okay and not snaggy, but you look at all the people on the wharf, wherever it is, and just go, does anyone ever catch anything here? You hear tales and so on, and so it all seemed a bit sort of fruitless and not as nice as standing on the beach in the Coromandel, to be honest, but did a bit of detective work, asked the fishing shop, and went down to somewhere called something like the Big Wheel. It's kind of on a point of land below Wynyard Quarter, and it goes straight out into the open sea. I'm led to believe that's why it's when the fish are running, they are running. And I turned up there, and it was busy. It was busy. Double parked cars. I reckon had to be at least 50 rods. Families, friends, groups of people. Me on my own, sort of stood around, had a look for a bit. Goodness, big snapper coming in, and big healthy looking snapper, not grimy and a city snapper. So I just wanted to stand there and contemplate my navel as fishing is often about. So I squeezed in, feeling a little bit, you don't know if these people are here all the time, whether it's their spot. I was also the only Palangi, to be honest, the only Pākehā, the only white fella. And so that gives you an insight into being the minority as a part of that. And yes, I squeezed in between, become my Chinese friend on the left, a bit more talkative than the rest of his crew, and the younger Samoan fella on the other side, who was there with probably his wife or girlfriend or whatever, and I assume their little baby. Why are we race tagging everyone? Because it sort of relates to where this story goes. Caught a couple of undersized snapper, but they had to go back in. Which is where the race part of the story comes in, because often I've got to say I have it's not a huge amount of data on 1.9 billion people of a race globally, is it? But I have found with a lot of Chinese fisher folk in New Zealand, unfortunately, that some of their practices don't sort of follow protocol and law, and have often sort of quite bummed me out, actually, just from the point of view of the whole preservation buzz and so on. Is that racist? Racism is like prejudice and superiority and discrimination and so on, isn't it? Just quickly Googling it. Hang on. The second definition, the belief that all members of each race possess characteristics, abilities, or qualities specific to that race. So I'm pinning the few bunches of Chinese fisher folk I've had around me over the last few years. Their actions on 1.9 billion people, perhaps a little unfair. I unhooked the wee snapper, and it's quite a drop. So not ideal for anyone who doesn't know. Under 30 centimetres at this end of the island has to go back in. So 30 centimetres is getting to a reasonable sized fish, and I had something that was probably 10 or 15. So it had a lot of swimming left in it. Hopefully a lot of baby making and so on. So I unhooked it, but it's quite a long throw down I guess it's sort of reclaimed land. It's the end of a road that goes into sea. So you've really got to sort of hiff it, give it a good hiff, and then it hits the water and it shoots off. But there's a whole bunch of rocks all the way down. And then I noticed all these dead undersized snapper floating around. So it was this weird kind of paradox of presumably people trying to do the right thing, but actually somehow killing the fish on the way down, which I assumed was hitting the rocks until the Chinese crew to my right. I watched them bring in a few of the undersized fish. So scorching hot day. Concrete, definitely not, as I say, out in the bush or whatever on the beach. So pretty raw dog conditions for a young fishy. But they were using their shoes to hold the fish on top of the fish, concrete underneath, shoe to pin it down, to then get the hook out, and then to throw it back in. So anyone who knows anything about handling fish, you should ideally use a wet cloth and so on. No chance those fish are going to survive. So here's my point with my not being prejudiced or inciting hate, which I certainly never would. I assume, it's just an education thing. So I kind of said something, but kind of joked it off, and I didn't really go any further, social awkwardness and all of that. And so that was that. And so I'm watching all these... they could have been eaten. They could have had something done with them, other than being really poorly handled and not really thrown back in to live, which is the whole point. Anyway, so that was that. Then just as a weird aside, we can tie this in with race as well. A party bus turned up. I don't know your opinion on party buses, but and I do like a good party, but the party bus... is generally one of the last places on earth I'd like to be, and I would have even liked to have been when I was in my 20s and late teens, which is when I believe a lot of people frequent party buses. So that pulled up. Anyone who knows fishing knows it's quite meditative. A bunch of fisher folk together will generally not be too noisy or crazy or abrupt, whatever. So we have this party bus in the middle of a hot afternoon, which a whole bunch of... white folk piled off. My people had arrived. I put my headphones in and tried to ignore what I assume was some kind of male response to a wedding, because there seemed to be one quite burly gentleman only wearing hipster briefs. They don't get me wrong; they weren't offensive. They weren't like leery. They asked dumb questions and they were kind of loud and they were a bit drunk, but they were just having a good time. They weren't actual, they weren't assholes. They weren't assholes. But in hindsight, when I thought about it, the guy who I assume had to be getting married or whatever, otherwise I don't know why he was wearing just his hipster briefs. Was kind of all over, not all over, in the hey, all over sense of being all over, but kind of quite in the facey with the quite shy wife of the Samoan fella I'd met on the left side. So, and they had a wee baby as well, and so she was kind of clinging to a baby and stuff. I don't know whether I should have done anything in hindsight there. I'm talking about overthinking a trip out to stand in the sun. But anyway, he was pretty harmless, but she did seem a little bit shook up when they left. And when they left, it was fantastic. I looked at that driver. He must have been about my age. By the way, the weird thing is, a multi-generational bunch of people hopped off that party bus. But anyway, the driver must have been about my age or a bit older, and I heard him on the phone it sounded like his partner or business person or whatever, and they're talking about how much money they have to sort of collect. He's kind of counting it at the front of the bus, and I know we've all got to work, and I'm thankful, and hey, maybe he loves it. Maybe he loves sort of stripper pole, worst end of hip-hop R&B jams, Bacardi Breezer, gendered, fighty social situations. Ideal. But to me, he just looked kind of jaded. This is the last part of the fishing story. Probably still can tie into the race story or the treatment of fish story. So then, quite an eventful few hours on the Sunday. So then, fisheries officers showed up, which I've never seen on a city wharf. But there you go. And it kind of felt like to me they were just roughing up a bunch of people, a number of whom looked like families, just kind of trying to catch a meal in these times when a block of butter is $6 or $7. And me the overthinker, I'm like, fuck, everything I've learnt about the practices of commercial fishing and those huge boats and out there, taking more than they ever need, bycatch, trawling, da-da-da-da-da. What are these guys doing, looking through these families, boots and buckets and stuff for their catch, I don't think anyone would have even hit quota. There might have been one or two undersized ones. But let's get back to the floaty fish. So the weird thing I found with the fisheries officers, I thought, okay, there's the punitive side of it, but it's to do with conservation. Well, apparently not, because they just are just oblivious to the floaty snapper. There was a number of these in the water, whereas I would have used that as an opportunity as a fisheries officer to maybe educate the Chinese crew on my right about how to properly handle and preserve fish. Because as I say, I think it's. I hope it's an education thing. I don't know, maybe they don't give a fuck. I think it's an education thing. I hope it is. Fisheries officers didn't pat me down, man. I wondered I'd been racially profiled there as well, to be honest. But by then, I was about off. God, this has been quite a long intro. I hope it was a good story. I was going to talk about some stuff I've seen on telly, but I think I'll leave that. Lovely chat with Lily. We used to work together. I was quite young. Always managed to get along, but, it occurred to me listening back to this that it's some kind of weird, or at least when we're working together, sibling that wasn't a sibling relationship. She's Lucy from the Peanuts. But we worked at Active together back in those halcyon days of the 90s. I talk quite a bit about Lily and her partner Andy have done some great stuff. They live in Nainai. They're very tied to the community. Lily runs the Nainai Community Clubhouse there for kids to do something other than nothing after school. We talk quite a bit about that. We miss heaps of stuff she's done. She's always been an innovator and a doer and so on. Put out one of the early New Zealand electronic compilations called Skankotronics in the 90s, which I forgot to talk about. This intro is far too long. There's a few slept-on eps from last year because they all went up really quickly. Alan McElroy, I guarantee you, hilarious episode. Irish comic, very funny. I need to go and see him live. Chris Chetland went up very quickly before Frank Booker, so he needs a few more listens. Good chat too. And I think Andy Van could do with a look in too, folks. All right, shouts to Hallertau. Some number 2s arrived in a box. It's a lovely beer. And shouts to Craig Spragan, who donated some coins, bro, to the podcast. Okay, like and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, Lily Chalmers.
This is Dr. Tannen's Verbal Highs.
Oh, fuck it, I'll just go for it. I'm sure it'll sound fine. These mics are pretty good. Hi. Is this the first time we've ever been on air together?
Never. No, of course not.
I'm sure we have.
No, we've been on the radio a lot together.
What were you doing on my show?
I don't know, you're probably... I did a slot called The Port Report with Jenny Shipshape, and I used to read out...
I think you're confusing me with Liam.
No, he would never have let me do that, Lewis. And I used to come and read out the ships that were in port.
Why would we have decided to do that?
Because we got a fax from the port every week to say what ships were coming in, because we're a radio station and that's what radio stations needed to know. So I made the best use of that fax by reading it out on air.
Wow, we must have been light on content.
Yeah, well, it was just...
Because I think I had Carl Kippenberger doing a report on chicken burgers, but that only lasted 1 or 2 weeks, because the second time he phoned up, he was on tour and said, "Oh, I'm so homesick. It's great to hear from you guys." Speaking of sensitive people.
And we did a few live tours. I remember we did an interview from Miami.
That's right.
on the radio.
That's right.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about that travelling later on, because I think I was so insulated in the world of Wellington then. It was like you guys went away and came back. And I never really gave it a huge amount of thought, but it's like you ended up hanging out with people like Carl Craig and stuff, didn't you?
Yep.
How'd you do that pre-internet?
Well, we just got the address. It wasn't exactly pre-internet.
Oh, not with people like that, I guess.
We didn't call ahead or email ahead or anything. We just kind of turned up at the door, and I remember turning up on the door of Carl Craig. Must have been after we hooked up with them at the Winter Music Conference.
Yeah.
And we rang the bell several times, and it got a bit awkward. We're like, should we keep ringing, or are we being annoying? And then some dude came down, and he turned out to be a producer who haven't heard of since, and took us up there and showed us around. And Carl was there, and
So this is Planet E.
Carl's dad was there.
So what was the Planet? Was it their offices? They were a big enough thing that they
Office
had
/ recording studio.
Wow.
I mean, it was kind of the heyday, right? Everyone had to have an office to look the part.
Well, I suppose they were selling enough physical records. That
Probably.
They gave you every record in the catalogue, didn't they?
Well, they gave us 2 copies of most of the Planet E. They were 12 inches, no albums or anything.
Well, that's what I mean. That's pretty amazing.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Take these with you in a bag.
And the same at Transmat.
Wow.
Went to
Where were they in
Transmat.
Detroit?
Yep. And we also went to Chicago. We turned up to, what was that hip label in Chicago in the late 90s, and they did Ging.
That's Blue Boy, and that label was called Guidance.
We went to Guidance.
Yeah, and they didn't give you 2 copies of each record.
They gave us quite a lot of records, though. We still have a lot of them, and we just recently managed to give some to DJ Lemon, because we'd seen that these were ones that burnt in his collection.
That's beautiful.
We had doubles, so
I wonder if he had a list. Oh my god,
that's pretty freaky, eh?
Could you,
Do you have a list?
Eh?
Do you have a list?
No, but I don't even really buy music these days, like collect and stuff. But I hear you. Mine's like it's a nice display on one of my walls. It's moved from Wellington to Auckland, back to Wellington to Melbourne, back to Auckland.
Whoa.
And I just don't know if I could justify hauling it around with me again. If I go, you got to hold on to your collection, eh?
I think so. Like we don't really celebrate Christmas in our family, but we have 2 young children, and everyone gets a record on Christmas morning.
Yeah.
And what we say to them is, well, these are your records, but they're our records. We're trying to fill the gaps in the collection, because actually that collection is something to keep and to pass on, we think.
Yeah.
And they might not want it. They might think, geez, what do I want with this? But for now, we can just imagine that they might like it. And they seem to love their records. They play their records a lot.
Do you get them like kids stuff or like...
No.
Because you got to find that Muppet Show record.
Tani, well, there's 2 of them. Tani got Screamadelica.
Yeah.
And Kahu got a Talking Heads album.
So did he know he likes Talking Heads? Or
He
just
said
decided
it
that...
once in a lifetime is his 3rd favourite song after We Are the Robots.
How old is he?
And he's 5.
Right.
And, Daft Punk song, Around the World. So those are his 3 favourite songs.
That's a good first favourite song for a 5-year-old.
I mean, I don't actually believe there is such a thing as kids' music. I think kids need to be exposed to all kinds of music.
That's true, but I think the Muppets were kind of quite adult in their...
Oh, the Muppets, that's different. But now, like, I'm not going to buy them... I'm not going to take them to the Wiggles concert.
No.
I'm not doing that.
No.
Maybe Moana, that's kind of, marginal.
Anika Moore?
Anika Moore, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, kids actually love being exposed to all kinds of music. So taking them to WOMAD.
I got a good quality kids music, a modern version of the Muppets. Yo Gabba Gabba.
Yo Gabba Gabba rocks. That was the only thing I'd let them watch when they were little.
Biz Markie and... I've seen some amazing stuff on that show.
It's a great show. Thank you,
Devo.
Devo.
I've seen Questlove like teaching some kid to drum and all sorts of...
Is it still going?
I think it is. I came across that show because I got a remix of one of the songs, and it was just totally quirky, and I played it on the radio, and people either hated me for it or loved me for it. It's called Party in My Tummy.
Oh, I love Party in My Tummy. So yummy, so yummy.
It's a Baltimore remix that's all like... and then I was like, someone said, it's a TV show. So the Wiggles thing means I better introduce you because it's here. Lily Chalmers was Active 89 FM's self-appointed info pimp and the entertainment booker for the Matterhorn. I'm going to miss about 10 years out here. She founded Alphabet Street, an anti-Wiggles music event for children.
Yes.
And now runs the 9 Clubhouse, which we're sitting in. And I remembered 90% of my podcast rig, so we're sitting here with $2 up a Lower Hut $2 shop taped up mics here. Thanks, Lower Hut $2 shop. Now runs the 9 Clubhouse, a space that encourages children's creativity via access to technology. Hi. So what about your childhood? I met you at Active. You were maybe early mid-20s. You used to come up with your dog before you worked there.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's my earliest memory. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Napier and Rotorua.
Yeah.
My parents divorced when I was about 10 and I moved to Rotorua, went to Rotorua Girls High.
Who took your dad or...?
My mum.
Yep.
Long story, that one. Divorce, eh? Fun times.
It's not uncommon, is it?
It's not uncommon, still not fun.
Dad still around?
Yep. My parents were, great parents.
Yeah.
My dad's still around, my mum's passed away, but they were great parents. They did the best they could, I think.
Yeah.
Which is all any of us are doing.
What do you mean? Why do you say it like that? Like just there's a lot of pressure and...
I don't think... Well, divorce was a relatively new thing. It was kind of the early 80s.
Yeah.
And I don't think they really thought it through. I think they probably could have worked on it instead of just going to the, I'm over this. This is a thing that everyone's doing. This sounds good. This will make everything easy. And it really didn't. It just complicated matters, but it's okay now. It's fine.
Yeah. So you'd like commute between...
Yeah, I used to take the bus back to Napier in the holidays and some long weekends, which is great. Love that bus. Lots of good daydreaming time, listening to music and all sorts of things. I think I had a tape Walkman.
Did you go to school in Rotorua?
I went to high school there and intermediate and went to primary in Napier. And that was the real good life. We had a river at the back door and we used to go up and down on our bikes and it was real freedom.
I've never thought about this. Have you got brothers and sisters?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest though, so they're 10 years older than me.
I was going to say, you strike me as someone who could be an only child.
Yeah, I kind of was an only child in that way.
Wow, that's the difference between me and my, nearly me and my youngest auntie. So yeah. So were you the unexpected? You were unexpected?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
An accident. A happy accident.
And did you turn up in Wellington because you were going to Vic? I can't.
No, I didn't.
Remember.
So I basically dropped out of school and I went and lived with my dad. And he said, "You've got to do something. You can't just be here doing nothing." So I'll go do this nanny course.
Yeah.
So I went and did a nanny course, and as part of the nanny course, we came to Wellington where my brother lived. He lived in Petone.
Yeah.
And we just went out and, I was about 18 or 19 and I was like, "Whoa, Wellington's really cool. This looks like a good place."
It's like the big city when you've come from the middle of the
Totally.
North Island, right?
Yeah.
Hey, it was like the big city till I left there when I was 22. I was like, oh, man.
So I came and I thought, as soon as I graduate here, I'm going to move to Wellington and stay with my brother and get a job as a nanny. And pretty much that's what I did.
Nannying?
I worked as a nanny for a makeup artist who did a lot of the Peter Jackson movies for a long time. Had a few nanny jobs and then just kept bugging Radioactive until they gave me a job, really.
But you knew people when you were coming up. Because I remember you turning. I was very new there as well. So you weren't doing shows or anything. You were just turning up and going, "Can I do something?"
I think I did. I think I did some Death Till Dawns. So it was Andy Pickering who you've obviously interviewed. He was my boyfriend. We broke up. He moved to Auckland, and he encouraged me to go to Active, which was awesome. And also Karen Kopek, who was my friend then.
You and Andy were going out. That's right. How long was that for?
One of my Andy boyfriends who happened to be a DJ. There were 3 of them.
Yeah.
I finally found the right one.
Yeah.
No offence to the others, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, he encouraged me to go up to Active and give it a go, and it was addictive, really. It was a great scene, and I met all the friends that I have now have come to me through Active, really, all the really dear friends who I can just let it all hang out in front of. They've come to me through Active.
I think in Wellington I could say similar, also obviously because I went to school here, so definitely Wellington High, but yeah, Active's kind of like the Muppet Show in a way. Yeah,
totally.
All the friends I've met.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know
chickens and frogs
and even people who aren't involved in music.
Yeah.
People like Laurie Foon and people. They're all connected through Active somehow. So it's, I guess, when I look back now, and that was 20 years ago, I look back now and I say, okay, there's a lot of sameness in what I'm doing now from what I was doing then. It's all about community. It's just a different community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you, what were you initially hired to do? I mean, doing shows and stuff, but actually have a job. It's probably
it's a funny one.
$120 a week too.
Yep, something like that.
Yeah.
So Anya, who was the office manager, had some courses, so she couldn't be a full-time office manager.
Yeah.
So I job shared with her. I think I did 15 hours.
Yeah.
And then I pitched it to Mark Cuby that I might do some other stuff, which was sales as well. So I started doing fringe sales and art sales, and that's kind of...
How were you at sales?
Oh, I mean, it probably wasn't that good.
No, neither.
It was easier to sell Active than anything else, I think, because it was just about building those relationships.
I think that I got those extra sales hours to kind of try and top up the breakfast show. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I sold a lot. I think I maintained the clients that I got given, but actually selling, there's quite an art form there, right?
Yeah, I mean, convincing someone to buy something that's invisible, it's not easy.
Yeah. Or just convincing someone to give you money and stuff. I'd probably be better at it now. I don't know what it was, but I often reflect back and go, wow, I was really shit at that job.
I mean, I don't actually think I was shit. I thought it was pretty good.
I'm talking about me, yeah.
I did maintain some pretty good clients, and I brought in some new ones. It was just very restrictive at the time because we had BFM saying you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't talk to anyone national because we do that. So there was kind of the politics of it really pissed me off because I wanted to have a relationship with Adidas or whatever, and we couldn't because had to be dealt with through the Auckland people. So
the
that side of
mafia.
things frustrated me. So I mostly did arts in the end, which I loved.
Yeah.
And I think I actually did make a difference to how those things went.
Yeah. I think I was just thinking the first thing I managed to sell on Active was a schedule to a dentist, and Miles did a ad with a character called Plaque Cousteau. And then I phoned the dentist, loved the ad, and then I phoned him. I think the schedule went for a month, and I said, "How many inquiries did you get?" And he said, "None."
Oh. Well, that's the thing. It's a very long game, isn't it? And it's not just about the radio. People need to hear it, and it needs to back up something they've seen or something they've heard. And
then you sort of created a role for yourself, which I always thought was quite cool. Like, what was the idea of the info pimp?
Well, it was already being done. It wasn't not done before I got there.
Yeah.
I just
there was
put it into one job, I guess. And, I mean, it was really important. All that information that was coming in needed to go somewhere in quite an organised way that DJs could access it. Yeah. I actually burnt my bloody arm. I got oos from using that Mac Classic to do all the databasing from the info pimp job.
Really?
Yeah.
Long term?
Long term, so, it's fine now, but...
What sort of... I can't remember what it was, like entertainment info and... No, it's not computer,
Oh, it was a Mac Classic. It was all the gig stuff. Yeah. All the accommodation stuff. Yeah. So there was quite a lot of stuff coming in that just needed to be organised and sent out. So I did that.
That role kept its name for many years.
It's still going. Right? She's still called the Info Pimp.
Wow. Who was it, Jen?
Jen.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
A number of things that you've instituted there were still going many years later. Handle the Jandal and...
Yeah. Why is that, I wonder? Why could no one come up with any better ideas after I left?
Yeah. They were good ideas.
They were.
Hopefully there'll be some new good ideas now.
That'd be good.
They're in a new premises and stuff, so that's nice. And then I took off 99 or 2000 or somewhere around there. Were you still working there?
No.
Where did you go next?
99. No, I was there in 2000. So, where did I go next?
That's right. I came back. I
went to Flaxwax.
I had an ill-fated 9 months in Auckland. I came back 2000, and then I buggered off to Ireland. And then you went to Flaxwax. What did you do at Flaxwax?
I was the studio manager, so pretty much managing
2 people.
3 people. There was Jeremy and Moo and George.
Yeah.
And we released a contemporary Māori music CD called Tangi Ora.
Yeah.
1 and 2 did launch for them at Parliament.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good job for me, although I ended up being the boss, and I didn't really want to be the boss because I didn't have a stake.
You were the boss of something that actually George was the owner.
I was the boss of
the owner.
I was the boss of the boss because he wasn't being a boss.
Right.
So I was like, okay, there's not enough in this for me.
He was just too laid back? Too disorganised?
Something like that.
Something like that.
I'm not saying it.
Hey, George.
So I went... I must have been about 24 then, 25, and I thought, hey, I've never been to university because I dropped out of school. Oh. I might do that. That sounds fun. Oh. So I went and did an English Lit degree and spent the next 2.5 years in bed or in the bath reading novels.
And was it Manhire? Is that the guy?
I didn't do any of his papers.
Any famous or any lecturers you can remember?
I remember Roger Robinson.
Yeah.
He was pretty awesome. He gave me my first A.
So just English Lit? You must have done other papers.
I did Māori studies and peopling of Polynesia and did Samoan studies.
No, I didn't do that.
I did.
I think that existed when I was there.
But print and technology. Just fun stuff.
Yeah.
I just kind of...
No film papers?
No. Oh, no, I did do one. I did it with Nia Phipps, actually.
The classic BA, I think even now, not that many years later, it's increasingly not an endangered species, but there's a lot less of them. Did it broaden your mind?
It really did.
It does,
doesn't it? Really did. Yeah. And it still amazes me because on one hand I feel like I was just spitting out the stuff they were telling me to get the marks, but on the other hand it really did broaden my mind, and I'd really encourage people to go and do some sort of study. It's just a study in critical thinking, and I hadn't really critically thought before, and now I bring that to everything I do.
I totally agree.
Great.
And it's a huge it's a tension of it's a long-term discussion fraught with tension in what I do now, which is obviously, I tutor and lecture, and I should be researching and so on and stuff, is the camp that says, why would you go to uni if you get something that doesn't get you a job? And then the other side is like it's to broaden your mind, and so some people just don't get that second perspective. It's like not everything you do needs to be cold, hard focus towards the economy and employment and vocation and...
I think it does help you get a job, though. That's the thing, because
I think
you're just looking at the long game rather than, okay, as soon as I finish my English Lit degree, I'm going to go be a book reviewer or whatever. That was never going to be a thing for me, but it has... really helped me. I mean, anyone who has to write for their job should go to university.
Well, even those kind of...
write reports, all that stuff.
Even those kind of negatively kind of pragmatic people are like, you should just be digging a hole, They should realise that, even on that level, you've demonstrated that you can hand in something that's of worth for 3 years and get through it. And there's so much to it that I think is really valuable.
Absolutely.
What I was going to say about you, when you did it, is like, I actually now, if I had kids, would be in no hurry to send them straight after school, because I don't have regrets about this, but I was so young. So I almost think you did it, if there's a right way around, it's sort of better than going straight from school.
It worked for me.
I finished, I was 19 when I finished.
Oh,
it's
wow.
like, and I have students that young now, it's like, go take a gap year or 5 and then come back. You know
what really worries me is I ended up going to teachers college way later.
That's right.
But there's a whole lot of 19-year-olds coming out of teachers college, and I'm like, actually, no, you can't be someone's teacher. You don't know anything.
You can go to, I don't
And
know.
maybe that's just me getting old, but I do believe it.
I'm with
You should be. Yeah.
Well, this might be 20-year-old information, but certainly 20 years ago, you'd go through police college for 6 months, and there you go. You're on the street at 18.
Yeah.
Making those decisions that police make.
Yeah.
So what happened with the teaching racket? You didn't end up. Did you do primary or secondary or?
Yeah, no, I did primary. Well, it was a mix. I did the 1-year diploma, so I could teach primary or I could teach English at high school.
Yeah.
And then I had children, so we decided that we moved out here to Nainai because it was where we could afford to buy on one income, and I was quite staunch that I wanted to stay home, or that one of us should be at home for our kids.
Absolutely.
Because my mum worked when I was a kid, and I felt like I needed her to be at home.
We're the latchkey generation, right? Just get home from school, make yourself a sandwich and head out for 2 hours and come back.
Or some icing. Make yourself some icing. Or make yourself some fudge.
Or just have some jelly crystals. If you're going to...
Or if you're poor, raro.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, I diverted you. So you wanted someone at home?
I wanted someone at home, so finished my teaching and then thought I'll go and do teaching later. Little did I know that you had to register within 2 years, otherwise you'd have to go and do a whole lot of papers again at the cost of about $5,000. So anyway...
maybe that's why they're talking about how there's a teacher shortage, because everyone who goes and...
Yeah, they did kind of screw it up.
But let's look at the glass half full end of that. I just thought here... Oh, well,
I wouldn't have applied for this.
Well, I think every single day here you would be applying a lot of the classroom management and, teaching and learning strategies that you learnt at...
It's interesting because this is not a teachy place, so this is where children...
It's still mentoring young people.
It is. It's mentoring, but yeah, I mean, it definitely has helped me. Having all that educational kind of knowledge behind me has helped when I look at kids and how they're learning, help me how I think about it, help me engage with teachers who might think about, encouraging kids to come here. Yeah, definitely the classroom management. This place is... I do have a very loud teachery voice, so that's handy.
Yeah.
Kind of scare people sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
So describe, I suppose you describe where we are. So, well, firstly, folks, people listening, mainly in New Zealand and Australia, to be honest. So some of you will know Nainai if you're from Wellington or further afield in New Zealand. So we're in the suburb of Nainai, and this place is that we're sitting in now is what?
It is the Nainai Clubhouse, which is a after-school technology centre for young people 10 to 18.
Yeah.
It's basically just a big room. It's got a recording studio at one end and an office at the other. And we have lots of bits of kit here. So we have a brand new Mac suite and PC suite that we're sitting here. We have a massive smart TV. We have a 3D printer, lots of
kit set synthesizer, kits,
lots of electronics kits,
Solar Deluxe educational kits.
Yeah, we have
a really
a
huge
sewing machine, massive TV, and lots of musical instruments. So basically, young people come in here and they go, "Oh, I'm 10. I have no idea what I'm interested in."
Yeah.
And we go, okay, well, what do you like doing at home? Oh, I like playing PlayStation. Okay, well, let's get you making a character then. If you like playing PlayStation, let's think about what a character might look.
3D animated character.
Oh, it could be, you could draw it and then we could animate it. Yeah.
Yep.
So basically we're using their interests to build technology skills. We have kids that come in here and go, oh, I'm only interested in basketball. And we're like, well, we don't really do sports in here, but how about we teach you Photoshop and you can make a big A0 poster of your favourite basketball players and you can Photoshop it up so they're all in the same picture and then we can get that printed out for you.
So we're in a... Nainai's always been somewhere where there's not a lot of cash around, is there? So,
no, it's one of the
socioeconomic decile, blah blah blah, and all of that. So, is there are the schools still not particularly equipped, or the?
Well, I actually don't think many schools are really equipped. I mean, this club. So Clubhouse.
That's what I mean. I'm not trying to. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to inadvertently tar this suburb.
No, but the reason
about,
Clubhouse is here is because people are poor.
Yeah.
So Clubhouse came out of MIT 25 years ago. A group of scientists who are working at a place called Lifelong Kindergarten decided that they should put technology into a library and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And they observed these children figuring out how to use the computer and downloading programs and, well, probably not downloading, but getting stuff done on a computer without any instruction from an adult.
Yeah.
And they were really, really fast. So they developed this kind of network and a learning model, which is all about building trust and relationships and using your interest as the learning, and started the clubhouse. And so there's now 100 all over the world in different places, but the common thing is they're all in places that are low socioeconomic.
So then where does the funding come from? Are there some patrons in the US or something? How are they set up? And
so
do you look for local sort of...
Well, they have sponsors. So they're a network. So at the network level, the clubhouse runs it. And then on a local level, it's run by parent organisations. So, for example, our parent organisation here is the Hutt City Council, and they fund this program.
So cool.
And we are funded as part of the library, so we sit under the libraries as part of what's called the digital inclusion strategy for this kind of area.
So this might be a weird comparison to draw. It's the only one that comes into my mind. So it's almost like when one country has like a successful TV show and another country buys it and does it their way. What I'm meaning is the council looks at this as an already established model that works overseas and goes, okay, we can invest in that because we know that the way it's all set up and structured overseas, kind of works.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And we get a lot of that infrastructure from the network as well. So
so are you like in contact with these places all around the world?
Yeah, it's great.
That must be a trip too.
It's awesome. Every year I get to go to an annual conference in America.
How was that? How was the first one?
Well, we went to a training in Boston. That was pretty wild because there's a whole lot of people who just turned up and they got their training. So that was really good and made this awesome bunch of people, one from Detroit and one from, Chicago and one from New York. And then the annual conference is great. We do a lot of professional development. So we do a lot of making. We're soldering. They call it soldering in the US, which I found really weird. Soldering, yeah.
What's soldering?
That's soldering in America.
Oh, okay. It sounds like something punishable in the Bible.
I know. They do a lot of soldering in America. And that's why they're in this trouble they're in. No,
Trump does a bit of
it's great. The annual conferences are awesome. Yes, there's someone from Buenos Aires and people from Colombia.
How did you find Boston? That's a pretty rough and ready part of the US, right?
Not where we were, probably.
Okay. People, what you're looking at?
I found Boston really great. Every 2 years we have a teen summit where we take 2 to 3 teens from every clubhouse to Boston for a week. So we're doing that next year. I'm taking 3 rappers from here.
Have you done that before?
Done it once before.
And how were those guys? Have they travelled out of the country before?
Not really. It was incredible.
Wow.
So much fun. And they have to work, so they get put in these groups and they choose what group they want to be in. They have to create something in the week that will help fulfill a social need. Yeah. So there were kids who had 3D designed this machine that helped artists who have ALS draw with a pencil using the 3D printer.
Yeah, wow.
So lots of different things.
So you're on the plane with 3 kids that aren't yours, taking them overseas for their first overseas experience.
Yeah.
Families were like, "Yep, we're into it."
Yep.
Did you find your... Oh, you're putting the phone down. You're hiding.
It's found. The families were into... Oh, one family was like, "Can we come?" And I was like, "No, you can't." But they got over it.
Surely they could just pay their own way and come.
No, because then it's not the same experience. If your mum's there, is it?
Yeah. How old were the kids, teenagers?
14, yeah.
So they're what? They're 10 to 18?
Yep. So this year I'm taking 2 16s and an 18, which will be different. And there are rappers. They're called 5011, which is our postcode.
Hey, have you heard? Oh no, their name's going to slip my mind. That crew from Onehunga are really good. Swidit.
Oh yeah,
Swidit.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're not like Swidit.
Yeah, but get your students onto them.
Okay.
They're not like Swidit. Yeah. What are they like?
They're kind of old school. So our kids are into
Boom
old school.
Old school. It's coming back.
Look, they listen to a lot of Warren G, I think.
Oh, West Coast.
Yeah. It cracks me up.
They like the
What?
smooth,
I know this.
They like the smooth 90s stuff.
I just never expect to know any of the stuff that they're listening to, but I end up knowing all. Like they're
90s hip-hop
they're
is-
into 90s hip hop
is
or they're
big,
into
man.
old school reggae.
Yeah, beautiful.
So, yeah, it's good. It's interesting. There was a few kind of trap beats at the beginning, but me and Mike, the engineer,
Ironed it
kind of
out.
put a stop to that. Like, no one likes that stuff.
Oh, come on. If they do, if they're under 25, no one likes
Oh,
that stuff.
maybe I should frame it in that we exposed them to a whole world of hip hop that they didn't know about.
Have they ever been, like, have they ever come and, like, sort of looked at you guys and gone, just assumed you'd know nothing about music and then been quite surprised? You know what you're like when you're in your teens? You're like,
Yeah, I guess so.
That person's
I guess
150.
so.
They got
Yeah.
no idea.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah. My staff are pretty good at backing me up. They go, listen to her. She actually knows what she's talking about. So I like that. That makes me happy.
So before it was here, what was there to do after school in Nino?
Apart from this, there's actually pretty much nothing to do. There's a basketball court.
So has it gone from, has it gone like, not waiting list, but have you, you got lots of people interested in coming along?
Yeah, we have some really busy days. So I think our busiest, we've had about 35 to 40 kids in here.
Yeah.
And then we do have some really quiet times as well. So it just goes through phases. Not everyone comes in every day.
That's life, right?
They've all got their own stuff going on, whether it's
yeah.
sports or family stuff. There's people we're not accessing because it doesn't really work for high-risk youth at this point. But I'd
Yeah.
like it to.
So
I
how
want
do
to
you-
transition.
How do you assess that whether they can or they can't?
Well, they can
attend?
come in and give it a go, but if they can't play by the rules, they can't
Right.
stay.
I was just thinking about that because just what I was telling you about somewhere I taught recently, there was a bit more of that than my main job, and I sort of thought, wow, some of this I really am, as a compassionate human being, I really want to help here, but I'm not really trained in this area. You can see you get what
Exactly.
I'm getting at, right? So with that side of things, if you had to be a default kind of guidance counsellor.
Well, we definitely do that. We definitely do that
Yeah.
because part of what we do is build that trust. So a lot of our young people say, Clubhouse is a bit like a family. We feel like we're accepted here and
Yeah.
we can talk to people if we have problems and ask them stuff like, we do things like get kids IRD numbers or, go and help talk to their mum because their mum doesn't really get the thing that they're trying to do or whatever.
Yeah.
So we do act as advocates for our young people quite a lot, but we're not trained youth workers. We're all arts
That's
people.
what I'm getting at, totally.
It's a really
you don't
fine
want, You
line.
don't want to do the wrong thing, even though as a parent and stuff, you'd probably intuitively do the right thing. It is that.
Well, you do have to be careful. There's a new law called
That's what I was gonna say,
Oranga
all of that
Tamariki.
side of things,
Yeah, where we have to really think about the child protection side of things and report stuff. So, I think it's moving in the right direction. But then we have a lot of people around us who are youth workers who we can call in to help us or in all areas, whether that's in sexual health or mental health or just trying to get a kid a benefit or whatever. So there is a lot of support out there for us, but we often have to be that person who's walking alongside the young person.
All right, so at the upper range of your age group, which I think was 13 to 18, so you're actually helping people at that end.
Yeah.
Sounds like transition from school or whatever to
I pretty
going
much
out into the world.
I pretty much just bullied someone to applying for Massey, and he got in, and
Wow.
he was not
What's
going to
the degree?
apply. He's doing visual communication design.
Wow. Where, Wellington?
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
So yes, bullying is a part of it. It's positive bullying.
Oh, how do we get from bullying? I see. I thought we were still talking about
You say,
the counselling side of it.
No, working at that end of the scale, there's a lot we do for our kids.
Yeah.
And even after that, when they come back, when they leave after they're 18, most of them want to come back and be mentors. So still work with the kids, have a little bit of more experience and sit alongside us. But I think it's because they feel like they've got that support there if they do need anything. We will help them.
What's an average run here for someone? They can be here for a year or 5 years or 6 months. I'm looking at that mic. I'm sure it's drooping.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's very good red gaffer tape there. I wouldn't call it gaffer. We'd call it NAFA tape.
You know what's good about it? It's actually like we're back at student radio here. That really is about the extent of it.
I'm desperate to start some radio here, Lewis, but no one listens to radio. None of the young people listen to radio.
Start
so
an online station. Doesn't have to be, and then you get those community frequencies are free. The ones that just broadcast within 3K.
Yeah, we've got the technology to make our own.
I think you should do it.
Yeah,
it doesn't even have to be on air all the time. It can be like an hour a day. So one person a day. If 7 kids want to do a show, that's 7 days filled.
Yeah,
I think you should.
Well, we did a podcast. We did an event called Illuminating Nainai, where we found the history of Nainai, set 6 places up that we wanted to research about, and then wrote and recorded a podcast and did a bike tour, twilight bike tour of those places. And Nainai has some very interesting history. You wouldn't believe it.
What sort of things?
Well, there was a house up Rata Street in World War II where they had the vault and they buried all the money in case the Japanese invaded.
What?
Yep.
Wow.
The mayor's...
What money? Just money and just some...
Like gold.
Yes.
It was gold.
Oh, okay.
It was gold,
The money.
Gold bars.
Yeah.
And there's
My
a
dad
house
once
up on the
buried some
hill.
money in Strathmore. Is that part of Strathmore's history?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a house up on the hill called Balgony House, which used to belong to the former mayor of Wellington and used to be his party house. Has Italian marble fireplaces and...
It was a different time.
It's pretty crazy, yeah. And used to be a...
I don't think Celia Wade Brown had a party house, eh?
No.
Yeah, anyway, sorry, keep going. And
it used to be a big market gardening suburb as well. Massive. They cleared it for the state houses.
I was going to say, yeah, where's the...
all through the Hutt Valley, actually.
When we were driving through, because a lot of state housing now is state house by design, but privately owned now. Is that all still a lot of state housing? Or
It's
the government sold off a lot of it, eh?
It's sold off a lot. I think it's... I don't even know. No, it's partly state, partly private.
Yeah. But
there was a period, I think, in the
70s
where you could buy your own if you'd lived in it.
Yeah.
So lots of families. What's cool about living here is you meet old people who were born in their houses.
Yeah.
And, you know,
But
I've
do they
lived
own
there
them or
ever
rent
since.
them?
They own them, most
that's
of
good.
them.
See, that's a good thing. If you say an area is sort of struggling and stuff, if you've got a lot of home ownership, that's a good thing.
Yeah. 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 So, yeah. I can't remember where we were, but there's
we
some
were
interesting...
talking about your bicycle tour of Nainai. So anyone who outside of the clubhouse who wanted to come on the bike tour came?
Yeah, so it was part of the Hutt Winter Arts Festival.
So who presented it? One of the kids? Was it like...
Well, we just held up the little speaker and we played the podcast at every... And it was all recorded by the kids. So it sounds... Some of it's like, the pronunciation's not so good or the mic technique, but actually... There was a warmth in that.
Yeah.
Because you could tell that the kids had put their heart and soul into it. It sounded great.
It's like that's always been your thing, eh? Like coming up with ideas. Like, how did you guys do the staff sit here and go, all right, what should we do next? What should we... It's
mostly me. I'm actually starting to feel guilty. It's like, I just have an idea and then I go, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
But they come along with me, which is good. I'm trying to be... 2018, I'm going to try and have less ideas. Or I'm going to try and put them into other people's heads so they come up with them. So it doesn't seem like I'm just like...
Why do you
overlord
have
it? I don't want to be the overlord. I want it to be more... I want other people to have ideas too.
But if their ideas are shit and there isn't a lot of them...
Well, if there's a gap for an idea, I'll fill it.
Let the audience note for the record that Lily looks quite chuffed at the moment.
I do have a lot of ideas, and yes, I'm very well supported that we can do them, and that the kids come along board too. I mean,
so you're not going to have a lot of so your New Year's resolution is not to have a lot of ideas. But what are some ideas that you've got now before that for next year that you're going to do here?
For the clubhouse? Yeah. Yep. So we're at the moment, I've already planned 2018, don't worry. At the moment, we are doing a lot of bike fixing up, and so the cops donate stolen bikes or bikes that have just been left and not reported to us, and we have a guy who comes in,
oh my God, that's so cool,
fixes them up for us, and we give them to our kids. So we're doing a lot of biking in 2018. We're going to bike to the Douse once a term. Yeah. And do a program with them. So that's the local gallery.
Do you reckon, because that's really interesting you mention that, because this obviously is somewhere that's, you say it's technologically focused and stuff, and a lot of that does involve sitting down and da-da-da. It's obviously probably more productive than way more productive than watching TV or similar. But you're not kind of mandated to do physical side of stuff as well. But my question here is, because I'm not around kids nearly as much as you, is it really that big an issue compared to when we were younger in terms of kids being really sedentary these days? Do you notice it? I thought everyone still gets out there on their bikes and stuff, don't they?
No, they
really
don't. They
changed
don't,
that?
actually. And we've really had to work hard to convince young people that they'd be better off getting on their bike than waiting for mum to come pick them up and drop them off, that they've got more freedom. But a lot of them have taken that up, and now they've got little crews and they go off and ride to Taita or ride to Petone.
Because the other thing is, I don't know about around here, but like around where I live, I find it's stranger danger stuff as well. That's a bit of a myth. I mean, I know every now and again something awful happens to.
We're way overprotective of our kids. We are.
Whereas we just
Whereas in Nainai,
speaking of being latchkey kids, like when I used to get home, it'd be like, mum was only up the road. It wasn't negligence for a second what went on with me. But it'd be like the other neighbourhood kids.
But
would get
legally
home,
now
get
it is.
our bikes out. Really?
Well, yes, you can't leave.
There'd be another mum home up the road, but we'd get our bikes up and we'd just madly ride around the same block we rode around for 5 years, still finding it entertaining.
Yeah.
And then I'd come in for dinner at whatever it was, So you reckon that there's paranoia about
There's a lot of paranoia. But what's interesting living in a place like Nainai
is there isn't.
Well, people don't care about that stuff.
No, it's like when I drive out South Auckland, everyone's out on the road.
Exactly, and the older kids are parenting the younger kids, which is what I love. I wish I'd had some older children to parent my children.
Has borrowing the loudspeakers from the outside of schools to put on your bike caught on here?
No, it hasn't.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have seen those guys. They're awesome. Yeah.
We say, stealing stuff from the outside of public schools is awesome.
There's not a great sound quality coming out of those speakers.
You know where it came from? A lot of their older brothers have them on their cars. I don't know about here, but in Auckland, you'll be walking down Queen Street and you'll hear, and it's someone who's mounted those speakers, those like horn speakers on the front of their car.
And they're playing music.
They're
not just doing an announcement.
No, but that's
because that'd be cool.
But it's the worst possible sounding. Like if they're doing it to attract a mate or whatever, I'm always like, oh man.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah, it is a thing. It is a thing. So we're doing the bike thing in 2018. We're going to do lots more arts stuff. Nainai's going to build an amazing new hub.
It's
a community hub, so it'll have like the library,
rec centre,
pay your rates.
That's exciting.
And programming,
youth clubhouse.
Yeah, that sort of stuff.
And they're building a brand new building.
Yeah, so we're not sure where and how, but we're gunning to be part of that. And then we're doing there's not a lot of public art in Nainai apart from the old mural. Because if in the ghetto you put the mural up and it makes you feel better, whereas there's no sculptures, there's no water fountains, the playgrounds are shit. So we're really wanting to engage our young people and having a voice about this stuff and starting to design their own things and taking them to council or youth council and active in their own community. Really, all
of this to the wrong ears. Might sound a bit like radical or rebel rousing. Have you come up? Are people who are making the decisions in Nainai been really willing to help?
They love it.
Oh, good.
They want. I
was going to say if they couldn't, you probably wouldn't be able to say it publicly.
Well, anyway. And I am actually paid by the Hutt City Council.
Yeah.
No, you do hear bloody youth council every now and then, but no, actually, the people I work for and the people who. Not necessarily the councillors, but the council staff are really wanting the public to have a voice because I don't think Lower Hutt's been very politically engaged in the past, and they want people to say, yes, we want this. So Wainui is also part of Lower Hutt, so there's a big contingent from Wainui that's kind of a self-contained. Not a lot of politicians coming out of Nainai at this stage.
Yeah.
But pretty exciting times when the announcement of who was going to be our next Prime Minister or our next government was, the cleaners, the people down the street. It was a party when I walked home that night.
Really?
Everyone was like, we're getting a pay rise.
Wow. And they say that I'd heard that, a lot of the workers had stopped voting for Labour, so that's good to hear. Maybe the tide's turning.
Not Nainai, but, just the fact that you finally get a win is real incentive to keep doing more, to keep being engaged, I think.
Yeah, it's strange. As much as I don't plan these things, I'm up I think you're going to be episode 51, and I'm yet to have a right wing person on this podcast. I'm unsure why this keeps happening.
Do you know any?
I must live in a bubble.
Do you know any?
I think you do know a few, but they don't let you know.
Yeah. I definitely live in a bubble because I was just like, what the hell at the election, or after Winston made his decision.
I don't know how much you follow other politics, but you kind of couldn't avoid it with the American elections. Did you think Trump would get in?
No.
Bizarre, right?
But I didn't want Hillary to get in.
But then people say that, but it's like, you've got two choices. You've got to. I still disagree with don't vote. And
oh yeah, no,
like
don't.
You've got to.
Well, actually, you don't just have two choices. That's the thing.
Yeah,
that's what they don't tell you in
that's
America.
true,
So I know
true.
lots of people who voted.
They kind of don't. Well, they do tell you that here, but it's kind of similar here. Like I know, yeah. I mean, the Greens are starting to get a sort of. Oh no, it is different there because I was thinking you got New Zealand first.
The Greens are in government.
What the figures are like? So when you walk down the street, I think the numbers say 1 in 10 or 11 people around you voted New Zealand first.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't that just mean 1 in 10 are old?
I know people who
I don't have a problem with Winston. No. I've always loved him. I won't vote for him, but I find him quite an honest person.
Politician.
Yes.
I think that I've been shot down so many times for saying this because people like confuse politics with like rational observation of stuff or their political leanings. Like, he's got a lot of charisma.
He's great. Absolutely.
And then arguably you need someone to kind of stir the pot in Parliament.
Well, and he kind of keeps other people honest.
Did you think that he... this is the call of the podcast. You said Winston Peters is an honest man.
No, I didn't say that. I said he keeps other people honest.
Before you just said he was honest.
Did I?
Yeah. I kind of knew what you meant, though.
I trust him more than I would trust a lot of.
I heard two women on Talkback Radio
I
heard a woman on Talkback Radio talking about how her best friend, she's an old, I would place her voice like late 50s, early 60s, like classic, like smoker's voice and stuff, and talking about how she was having wines or whatever with her friend, and her friend's got Winston Peters on the fridge, like a big picture of him, and they love him, and I thought that's the big appeal of like, see, people say, the Blue Rinse Brigade.
He's a poster boy.
There's a whole lot of women who like.
That's not why I like him.
I know. I'm not saying that
for the record.
But I'm saying I'm painting a certain picture of a certain demographic around New Zealand, and there's a lot of them, and it's like, who has an A3 of Winston on their fridge?
I want one now.
Gleaming, tooth shimmering.
We could Photoshop that at Clubhouse.
Did you think he'd go with Labour or National?
I thought, obviously I hoped he would go for Labour because that's what I wanted. Based on what he was saying and pre-election and what a lot of his the people in his party were saying, I thought he had to go with Labour because he was campaigning on a change and a difference and actually making life better for those who are less well off. Yeah. So he had to in that sense, and no, I probably didn't think he would. I just really didn't know until that night. And even on that night, I was so confused because he did this big speech and then just went, New Zealand Labour Party, and then just kind of walked off.
Man,
it was just like dropped it right at the end. It was like, what? What happened? Did that happen?
He was hanging out for B&H. I've got to get off the stage.
But I was so happy. And honestly, people were whooping as we were walking. People were beeping. It was almost like Samoa won the Rugby League World Cup.
I think I was at Brava the night he punched someone. Mic drop.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen him at the Matterhorn a few times.
Oh, he's around in it. You see a few selfies of him out in the racier parts of the evening.
The racier parts of the evening, yes.
Great suits too. So, backtracking a little bit, I never did figure out, because I went there years later, what the heck made you guys decide to go and live in Osaka? I mean, it's not sort of we'll go here. Everyone does that. We'll go and live in Osaka. In
Yeah,
Japan.
random place. Well, a friend, Jimmy Future.
Great place.
Jimmy Future lived there, and he was making heaps of money.
But what's his
selling
connection?
English to the Japanese?
What's his connection there? He's just a traveller, right?
He just went and did it as a job.
Yeah.
And then he got hooked, as you do.
Yeah.
So we were like, I think we just got married, so it was 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were like, I don't want to, I feel like I hadn't done anything. I wanted to just go and live overseas for a while. I didn't want to go to London. I didn't want to go to Melbourne.
Yeah.
It's just like, let's just go and have an adventure and do something, just the two of us, for a while. So we ended up going to Osaka and changed the face of New Zealand music. No. No.
To put my ideas to use there.
Yeah.
How did you? What was that a reference to? Oh, you got people signed to Japanese labels?
Didn't really. Made some introductions to a person who's now signed many New Zealand artists to Wonderful Noise.
Yeah. Jimmy wanted me to hook up with some guy from a record shop there. I don't think that's him though.
No, that's Yoshi Okino
I walked there
from
one day and I got pretty lost. And
you
then
should have gone. It's brilliant. Brilliant shop.
Then I realised it was the wrong day. Well, you know how I said I don't buy records anymore. When I was over there, I was like, if I scratch the seal on this, I walked into one shop and looked at the condition of everything and what they had, and I was like, no. I want to buy other stuff while I'm here. I want to buy clothes and blah blah blah. But yeah, the Japanese and things like their record.
Just anything collecting.
I heard
they're very serious about.
Heard, you never know whether this stuff's correct or not, and I never researched or whatever. But I heard that they, a bunch of Japanese people kind of were travelling overseas regularly, quite a few years ago, and just buying a whole lot of stuff up from Europe and the States, and that's why. Like, what I'm meaning is that a lot of that secondhand music wasn't originally in the Japanese market.
Yeah,
I think because the reason I say that is I was just baffled as to how do they have all of this cool shit? They can't all have been originally Japanese.
I guess they do have buyers.
Did you guys come back with boxes and boxes of music?
Well, I think so. I think we sent quite a bit of stuff back.
Yeah.
Probably not as much as we should have, really, considering, when I think about all the deals we got.
When you got there, we
got quite a few special presses for free from Yoshi.
So your Free Planet E records?
Yeah, we've got a whole section of free records there.
That's awesome. Yeah. But so when you got there, because when I got there, I remember someone showing me a photo of a $25 New Zealand apple, and I was only there a couple of years ago, and I was just actually amazed at how much that had changed. Won't get into the economy of it, something to do with New Zealand dollars, blah 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 blah. Anyway, I found it very cheap to go on holiday there. Did
you? That's interesting.
Yeah, only a few years ago. I actually couldn't spend everything I had with me, and I didn't have a crazy amount of money.
That's weird. You're weird. You should have gone with me. I would have spent your money for you.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like that. It wasn't being frugal. My point being, when you got there was it still quite an expensive place to live, relatively? Or?
Well, we were earning yen, so...
What were you doing? Teaching English?
Yeah. And working for Nova, which was the worst company, the one that got shut down and ended up... All these teachers didn't get paid.
Like one of those shonky...
It wasn't shonky. It was an old one. It was just a very big one. But their practices, they're real bullies. So they'd interview the clients after they'd had a lesson with you, and they'd say, "What did you think of Lily? Do you like her?" And the clients would go, "No, she's not pretty." And they'd go, "Okay, well, we'll let her know that she's not getting a pay rise this year."
They'd tell you exactly what the students said. How
Often.
do you teach Japanese if you don't know? I've never understood this with teaching.
Oh, you don't.
Overseas.
It's just conversation. So you just have conversations.
But how do you initially get through if you don't know a shred of Japanese?
This is a pen. Pen.
Did you pick up Japanese as you went?
Not really. Only some really dirty nightclub bad Japanese
So
that you shouldn't really say in public if you're a woman, especially.
How long did you live there?
Almost 3 years.
Did you start turning Japanese? Yes, that's a thing, right?
Yes. I believe shopping is a hobby. I mean, it's changed us forever. I think
for the better.
You become a Japanophile.
It's such a trippy place, eh?
It is, and I keep seeing this thing on Facebook at the moment about how polite people are and how they can occupy the same space in Japan. because no one's on their phones on the train. Like, you know, all those things. Actually, when I came back, I was like, oh, we are real rude. And we don't dress very nicely. And
but then hang on a second. The other side of that is that let's just say there's a yin to a yang throughout humanity.
Oh, of course.
The darker side of Japanese life and personality and so on is amazing. That's incredibly fascinating as well.
Well, and I'd never want to
because they are really bent in a lot of other ways, you know.
Yeah, well, I used to do a lot of conversation classes, like on my day off with housewives.
Yeah.
And so I'd never want to be in a Japanese marriage.
Yeah.
That's one thing I can say is
So
they were very, very sad.
Still super patriarchal?
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the stuff around honour is really beautiful on paper, and it's really great as a tourist. When, like, I left my, you know, latest Samsung Galaxy sitting next to the urinal, bathroom or whatever, a crowded restaurant bar in Osaka Saturday night. Realised about 90 minutes later, went back, it was sitting
I know, it's
exactly
wonderful.
where it was.
No one would have touched it.
Right, but then when you start reading about the other side of all that honour stuff and what it does psychologically and so on, I think it's to do with your generations of family and so on.
Yeah.
I think what I'm getting at without singling out the Japanese and stuff is humans are all as flawed and as beautiful on both sides wherever they're from. Do you know what I mean? It just kind of...
But I think being there for such a long time, it does change you and touch you, and it does change how you live your life a little bit. I mean, anywhere probably would.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just cherry-picked all the things we liked about it, and they're still part of our life now, I guess. Like,
wow. Can you think what you mean there? Maybe like one or two things?
Well, I guess, you know, we came back long before our kids were born.
Yeah.
But Totoro is a massive part of us. That was a Ghibli movie, one of his first one. It's the first one, I think.
Ghibli?
Studio Ghibli. They made Spirited Away and Ponyo and all those kind of quite famous Japanese kids movies. So Totoro is in our backyard now. We have a large sculpture that my husband made of Totoro for Kahu's second birthday. So, you know, things like that. It's just like we can't escape.
I thought you meant sort of ways of living.
Well, I always have a fan in my record bag. That's a thing, right?
What was that?
Because CJs are hot.
You learned that from female Japanese DJs?
No, I don't know. I mean...
I came back after only a week or two and landed back in Auckland, and it was like, oh, this place is so different. And that was only a week or two, so I can only imagine. Did you come back and see family at all over that 3 years?
We came back every Christmas. So
and was it always a trip? Just like, whoa, I don't mean a trip.
Christmas was fine because it was just like, oh, grass, oh, sea, oh, things we can sit on that aren't concrete. And it actually, that is the main reason we moved back in the end, because I just needed some nature that wasn't like, let's go on the train for 6 hours to get to nature.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't look like nature because it's just crowded with Japanese people.
Do you think that, because I can't base my stupid less than 2 weeks there, although I did go to where those beautiful temples are and stuff. What's that little area called? Kyoto, yeah. But so it's predominantly Osaka. But I thought, aside from the fact that it's Japan, Osaka struck me as a bit like Wellington or Melbourne, one of those cities that's got a particular energy.
Yeah,
there's something about that place, right?
Great music scene there.
I thought I could live there, but then I think you're lucky that you guys, were there as a couple, because I just thought about if you had the wrong day on your own, it's such the upside down reverse land that I'd imagine you could feel fucking incredibly mind-numbingly lonely there. You
do anyway, in a couple. Right. You're kind of like, okay, I've got one. Like we had a couple of really good Japanese friends. One we felt like we broke through the glass ceiling with. The other one, we never really got there. There was always like this cultural misunderstanding, this banging up against of you don't get me and I don't get you. So we can never kind of get through that deep stuff.
Yeah.
And I think for me, as a person who always has a lot of friends, it was really hard for me to just have Andy and Jimmy and not really have any of those deep relationships with Japanese people, because I desperately wanted them. I just never thought they would let me get any further, and maybe I was a bit of an offensive person. And I mean, that just in my natural personality, I say things that I probably shouldn't say because I make observations or those kind of things, and I felt like I offended a lot of people. Well, not a lot. Maybe a few, especially when I was drunk.
And we're lumping all these people, a whole nation, into one bag here. But Do you think that's, broadly speaking, a cultural thing, not getting through to the Japanese? Or is it that it's two different cultures clashing? What I'm meaning is that would the Japanese not tend to do that with each other, go deep? Surely they do. All good friends do.
I think so, yeah. I think it was just...
It's a cultural thing.
Yeah. So coming back to New Zealand was hard. It was a big transition. But in a way, I think it was more because I was coming back to Wellington and I was like, it's the future, but I'm coming back to the past.
Yeah.
Like, how can I move forward in a place that means the past?
And it is, and this is a beautiful thing and a restricting thing sometimes, it's incredibly small.
Yes.
Coming back to even Auckland, or anywhere back to Wellington, it's the past, and you can't escape the past because it's so small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I realised that I loved that past and those people, and I could still move forward and have those relationships and still be different from when I left. But it was a struggle in the beginning.
Does it still feel like Wellington being out in Nino? You go back in and do gigs and stuff though, don't you?
Yeah, we're back in every week. Yeah, it does. In fact, I think more people are starting to go, Lower Hutt, looks, we could probably buy a house out there.
Well, when I lived in Wellington, and I was very, in hindsight, narrow-minded, because it's the only place I'd lived, and I had my place in Cuba Street, I was probably convinced Hataitai was
I know,
the
me
suburbs
too.
in the middle.
Me too.
What are you doing living out there?
Yeah.
And now it's a 10-minute, 15-minute walk. I've come down with a car, and I was just like in Newtown. I was like, I've got a few minutes to half an hour to kill. So I drove to Lower Bay Beach, had a look up and down the beach, drove back through Kilburnie, ended up back in town. I'm like, this place is small. Very, very tiny. So the Shijay thing.
Yeah.
Is this it's basically a collective of you who DJ, right?
Yeah. It's social club in a way. It's the only way we can kind of get together often.
You and Mel.
And Gabby and Tracy Brown and
Is
Lisa.
Gabby Martin's partner you were talking about?
Yeah, Gabby O'Connor. She's an amazing artist.
And Tracy, who I know from Marmalade. 20-year-old cultural employment reference there.
Yep.
Yeah. And do you have to book all 5 of you or 4 of you to play?
No, you can book 2 of us. We hardly ever do it by ourselves.
Yeah.
And it just depends on who's around. But we
fun
have
with
great
a group,
time.
right?
We play 1-for-1 and it's just a bit crazy, always fun.
Yeah.
We play a lot of, 40s, 50s, weddings.
Bar mitzvahs.
Just stuff like that. Just stuff where people are ready to get down and dance to a bit of delight.
Yeah.
We're definitely not nerdy at all.
Yeah.
We
But
just
you wouldn't
play
go-
what people want to hear. We won't play ABBA though.
I was going to say, you wouldn't go completely tragic,
No.
I'd imagine, with,
No.
there's someone like you or Mel there.
No Bee Gees, no ABBA.
Yeah.
But other disco's fine.
Oh, no problem with disco.
Some people do.
Did Mel tell you she went to the Prince after party?
Yeah.
Did she tell you that Chris Cox was DJing at it?
Yep. I should have gone to Prince, but I didn't.
I went and saw Prince in Melbourne, and he's amazing, don't get me wrong, but I'm not like I get it, like he's amazing, and it's part of my childhood, but I'm not like a obsessive, Prince person. So for me, the show I caught was ideal because he's notorious for not doing the hits. But this is my I'm doing the hits tour.
Right.
So it was like 2000, let's say 2004, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
It was just hit after hit after hit after hit after hit.
Awesome.
But then there was stuff like my buddy next to me goes, because this is like not just him, it's like the band he brought out. He goes, "That's Maceo on the trumpet." I'm like, "No way!" And then we just picked out all these, there's some really famous musicians in the band as well. And then, how much of a Prince fan are you, by the way? Are you huge?
I'm not a huge Prince fan, although
Yeah.
I have been to Paisley Park this year.
Okay. So this would blow the proper huge Prince fan's mind. That the kind of A-level tier tickets for that show were like round, dining, like restaurant tables on the side of the stage, fully catered, booze and stuff. And he pulled a couple of the women out at one stage to dance with him on stage.
Wow.
That's what you got for you. But so it was a great show, and who knew that there'd only be a few more kind of after that.
I didn't.
Well, if you're not a diehard fan.
Well, I wanted to go. It was just the cost, really. One income.
Did you see
family.
Bowie before?
I saw Bowie in Japan. It was
Amazing.
It was his last.
'Cause that's your guy,
It was
right?
his last actual concert that he played of that tour. He had a heart attack soon after that and stopped touring.
But
it was
right,
weird.
But that's quite a few years before he died.
Oh yeah, it was quite.
Because that's your guy, right?
That's my guy. That's
Yeah.
my guy. He's on my arm.
He's on your arm. Yeah. But please, everyone note she doesn't have an actual portrait of Bowie because that would be a terrible
This is a
tattoo.
Simon Morse record with golden years on it.
Do you think I should
and
try
the golden years
do you think
font.
I should try and talk to him while I'm here?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my god,
Yeah.
definitely. Knock everyone else off. So yes, I saw Bowie at Osaka Castle.
Wow. Osaka
And
Castle. I walked there. I didn't know there was a venue there.
Yeah, and I was right at the top, and there was a guy, and Bowie was about that big, so the size of a matchbox from where I was sitting.
Yeah.
And he did his best, but there was a guy sitting next to me. I obviously thought David Bowie could hear him, because the whole time he just went, David, David, David.
Was he Japanese?
Yeah, he was, David.
Yeah.
It was just so annoying. So it wasn't a great concert for me, but I was glad I got to do it.
What wasn't great about it? The guy sitting next to you and the fact he was the size of a matchbox.
Yeah, it was way too big a venue, and it's just not, after 20 years of loving Bowie or longer probably.
Hey, at least you can say you saw him.
I should have gone to some other concert.
I saw a matchbox-sized legend who since died, who was probably actually his last tour, from what I know. But maybe even his last... No, it wouldn't have been his last show. I saw Michael Jackson in 1993.
Oh, wow.
At Mount Smart. Dayton convinced me and another friend, Aaron, he'd probably know if you saw him, and a couple of other friends to drive up. And I remember it being really good. Really young. It was 93. 96 would have been my last year of uni. But it was definitely the last time he played New Zealand. Perhaps maybe even the second time he played New Zealand.
Wow.
But yeah, I remember stuff like he came out on this kind of big, long crane arm thing. The classic...
Yeah.
Oh!
It's kind of black or white time, right?
Yeah. And 96, yeah, you're right. And then, no, but after that. And then... what looked like a real tank came onto stage, which was also far away. And then what may or may not be vaguely problematic from what we know now is all these kids from all these schools in Auckland came out singing Heal the World or something towards it.
Cute.
That's why I saw him just before all that icky stuff became public, so I think that might have been one of the last main tours. But yes, very small, but pretty amazing, and I'm glad that I saw him.
I have to say, I'm not a massive Prince fan, but we had a conference in Minneapolis this year, and I went to Paisley Park.
And what do you do now? Is it like going to Graceland now?
It's a tour, and you go on this tour, and we went on the VIP tour, so we actually got to go and record in his recording studio.
How'd you get there?
You just go and you sing along with Raspberry Beret.
How'd you get VIP?
You just buy it. You buy it.
I hate to tell you, Lily, but you're not a VIP if you pay for it.
I know. But funny, there was some actual VIPs. I can't remember who they were. There was some concert in town, and they had come through just after us. But
that's cool. So you get to record.
You get to go into his nightclub. You saw all his outfits, and it's kind of it wasn't that long after he died.
No, yeah.
So
he had a nightclub in the recording studio.
No, his house, Paisley Park, has his house. Yeah. It has offices. Yeah. It has a massive soundstage where he recorded all his music videos, or most of them, a lot of them, and it has 2 or 3 recording studios.
Oh, so Paisley Park's his residence. So it is similar to Graceland. I had no idea. I didn't really know what you meant when you said Paisley Park. I just thought of the record label. No, so it's a residence, and it's kind of in the countryside in Minneapolis. Do you know his... engineer long term was one of the earliest kind of renowned female album engineers. It's an amazing story. I just only learnt about it recently online with her. She kind of got one gig with him. She was totally not known. He must have seen something in her, and they stuck with each other throughout. Yeah, he's a pretty interesting person. Really, he is. I find it interesting how he and Michael there's so many similarities to be drawn. And then bizarrely, they were both on the same really strong sedative that killed them. Well, they were complete rivals. In one of the hallways, Prince did this mural someone did this mural. Not something awful towards Michael. No, he did this mural, and it was everyone who'd influenced him and everyone he had influenced, which I thought, what a narcissist. Anyway, love you, babe.
But, you know, so it had The Time and it had Sheila E. And then all the people that influenced him were Sly and the Family Stone and James Brown, and, like, not a whiff of Michael anywhere.
Oh,
like, he was definitely...
I thought he might have put Michael on the people that he influenced, which would be even more...
No, that would have been good, actually. Maybe. But no, not in there. So there's just kind of... He didn't like being compared to him. He didn't like being in the same ball game as him, really. He just thought we're different. You know, we're not the same. We're not similar.
They must have been okay earlier on, because if you haven't seen it, I'll flick it to you when I get home. But there's this wild, like really old VHS footage. You can see the numbers ticking along.
Was it the James Brown?
When he's just off his head, and Prince comes up on stage and he knocks over some of the stage props.
Is it the James Brown concert?
But isn't it Michael as well?
And Michael's there too, but they're not there together. They're separately in the audience, and they're both brought up.
But I shouldn't laugh, but it's just so comical. He's so out of it. He knocks over, like, there's this amazing, like, fake Greek statue, and you think it's like made of stone, but it's obviously polystyrene.
Well, he's got all his minders up with him as well. That's, I think.
And he plays really bad, trying to play lead guitar or
Does
something.
he? I can't remember it being bad, but I remember thinking, James Brown, what are you thinking?
Have you seen the footage of James Brown really high on coke on the news?
No.
I'll send you that one as well.
Okay, good.
He's in
I
these
like that.
clear, like, orange glasses, like those ridiculous Adidas glasses I had, but with the clear frames.
Yeah.
And he's just to this newscaster in the morning. Did you hear what Moody Man did after Prince died?
Oh, did he, open a house or something?
No, he made his whole house is purple now.
Yeah.
And he lives, like, on the high street. So there's just these purple curtains blowing out, purple everything. Did you see Moody Man when he came through?
Did you
go and listen to him, rather?
You mean, like,
Did you
years ago? Years ago.
Yeah, I think Chris Cox, those guys.
It was, yeah. That was great, actually. I think that was the last time I saw Taika on a dance floor.
Taika. I'd love to get him on this. He said yes, and then he disappeared off his Facebook.
I'd love to get him in here.
We should work together.
My
on
first
this.
guess was Brett McKenzie, because I was trying to win over the kids. Sadly, they didn't know who he was.
No way.
But they did know about the Muppets, so that helped. That's
actually more unusual.
They played along.
How did they know about who the Muppets were?
The Muppet movies,
right.
yeah.
So no. What about when Moo came along? Did they know who that was?
No, I had to school them before he came along.
Did you play them some of both?
By the way,
knows that.
Moo made a beat with us last December. He was going to clean it up and give it back to us. Have we got it yet, Moo? No. If you're listening, where's my fucking beat, man?
Moo, does Moo even... He used to have he had a cell phone number that he'd never answer.
I text him on that every now and then. I say, where's my beat, bitch?
He's not on social media. Kyan got on social media, which was amazing, and now he's all over it. Has happened, so maybe one day Moo will...
Have you been to Kyan's spot in Raglan?
No. The place that he DJs at, or he's got a record shop or something?
His partner has got a little record shop. It's called Ulo Raglan. She's a really amazing Japanese artist. Yeah.
You know, I wrote an article about him and put it on Audio Culture. I'll send you that too.
Oh, cool. Now we're just doing catch up on the mic.
This is what a podcast is, baby.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I listened to a guy, Joe Rogan, who they just sit there for 4 hours.
Whoa.
And
no editing.
No editing in this. Weed's legal in LA, so they just sit there for 4 hours. They also, visually broadcast it on YouTube. And often, if I've got stuff to do around the house, I'll get through the whole 4 hours.
Wow.
Just 3 dudes sitting around.
Cool. That's cool.
They might start talking about music, and then it'll move on to something in their lives, and then we're nearly there. Did you find the PA?
Yeah, I think so. I just have to get it now.
Okay. Have you got any closing thoughts, Lily?
Well, I just think, it'd be really interesting. You're just talking about a 4-hour podcast. I'd really like to interview you sometime.
Okay, but you don't have a podcast.
No, I don't need one, do I? I interviewed my dad.
What would you use
it's just sitting on my computer. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I could blackmail you later when you're really rich from this podcast.
Huge amount of listeners. Thank you. I'm glad this tape held out. That's what was holding me back. That was holding me back in my head, I think, that this wouldn't work.
It's worked.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Okay. Good luck with the clubhouse next year.
Thank you.
Remember, no ideas for 2018.
And if you're back here while we're in session, we'd love you to come visit and show us what you do, because I want to encourage our young people to do podcasting too.
Yeah, or something to do with setting up the radio.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
Bye.
Thanks.